Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the final segment of Youth Matters, where we're looking at and discussing mental health and how it impacts a young person, what can be done about it, what are some of the signs, and trying to generally just raise mental awareness and so that we can do more to help those around us. Alhamdulillah, আজকে আমরা ডিসকাস করলাম টপিক হইল মানসিক স্বাস্থ্য, মেন্টাল হেলথ। আমরা ভাই বোন আমরা কমিউনিটির মাঝে যে তারা মেন্টাল প্রবলেম থাকে আমরা তারা খেলা সাহায্য করতাম পারমু, কিতা অ্যাডভাইস নিলে ডাক্তারের লগে গিয়া মাতলে না দলক আমরা ইয়াং ভাই বোন থাকুন যদি তারা কিতা করতে পারবা, আপনার প্যারেন্টস আপনারাও কিতা করতে পারবা ওটা আমরা মাত্রান। সো প্লিজ আপনারা না সরিকাই বাসব ফোন হোক, আপনারা যদি কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন থাকে আমরা প্যানেলের এক্সপার্ট আইন ধরে আপনারা হোকা না, আপনারা যদি কিছু দেখছো না তোরা অ্যাডভাইস চাইন হোকা। So once again, as always, this show is trying to support our young brothers and sisters out there. So please do get involved. This is your show. And our parents, if you've got a question that you need answering or you've seen something and you're a bit worried, please do phone in. The number should be on the screen and participate in this discussion. Now, Khalil Bhai, what is the picture with regards to mental health looking like in the British Bangladeshi community?
It's not too bad compared to where we were about 20 years ago. However, this still remains a big challenge. We are seeing a lot of young people actually coming through the mental health services. And there are various factors we talked about earlier on, what could be the reasons. And there could be drugs, could be the pressure they go through. But the picture in the future is not dark, it's bright. So, yeah. There are, particularly I was involved with Bangladeshi Mental Health Forum. I was involved since, I think, 2004. And due to my work circumstances, I had to move area. Therefore, I'm no longer involved. But the charity still exists. And it particularly focuses on Bangladeshi community, primarily in Tower Hamlets and surrounding borough. But it works around raising awareness in Bangladeshi community. And honestly speaking, there's not much research has been done. It's not been commissioned to do a survey, research, what's the percentage. But what I can say also, it's very important that Bangladeshi community also take that as a challenge because you need to look after yourself.
Of course.
No one's going to look after you.
Thank you. Now, Doctor, from your experience, which ethnic groups would you say are more, prone to mental illnesses? Is that the right way to look at it? Which ethnic groups, people from different backgrounds, suffer more from mental health problems?
Interesting question. I don't think there is, at least to my knowledge, there is such research to show which ethnic minority. I think mental is something that can occur to any community, to any, regardless of age and where you come from. But in some communities, as you mentioned rightly, the way they respond to it might make things more difficult. For example, in Eastern culture, maybe Bangladeshi, but generally Middle East, there's a lot of stigma attached to speaking about mental health if someone has got problem. Those sort of reactions might actually make it more complicated. But in terms of the prevalence of it in which my community, I wouldn't say it is more prevalent in certain communities.
Okay. So I guess from what you both said, I think more research needs to be done on this so we can break it down further. I'm sure the last thing you want us to talk about is exam pressure. But would you say exam pressure can lead to someone having mental health problems, someone who's young? Have you seen that? Have you seen people where close to an exam time, they've actually really suffered and, in their mental state has changed? Have you seen that?
Well, I haven't actually seen anyone suffering from mental issues due to exam pressure alone.
So even the students in your year group, they don't worry about their exams. They don't.
They do worry about exams, but it's not common that people have mental health issues just because of exams alone. It's usually a mixture of lots of different things happening at the same time. But of course, coming close to the exam period, it's very traumatic and it's very stressful.
Sure.
It does affect a person. Sometimes if they feel like they haven't performed well in an exam, it can lead to further issues, them not performing in the exams after that, and so on and so forth. It's just, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think you touched upon a very interesting point. So if a child underachieves, if a student underachieves, can that then have a significant effect on their mindset moving forward?
Yeah, of course, it can sort of change their aspirations. So, for example, if a person wants to become a doctor and they don't meet the sort of requirements that they need at GCSE, then it just sort of they have to sort of think of new aspirations, and it's sometimes it's hard to take, and of course, like no one wants to be in that situation.
Okay, thank you. Now, Khalil Bhai, in terms of, you hear a lot of stories, you read a lot of articles in the news where it talks about spirit release and mental health, and talking about possession and so forth. You working with the Bengali community so closely and mental health, how do you, what's your take on that?
If you're from Muslim background, it kind of makes the article of faith for you to believe in jinn existing and possessions. Therefore, it makes it easier for someone to accept jinn possession than mental health, and go to seek help from those area of experts. In terms of understanding, sometimes we don't understand mental health. What is the difference between mental health and jinn possession?
Sure.
So that makes it difficult, because whereas physical health, if you break your leg, you can go for a scan and see your leg is broken and it's fixing. Whereas mental health, it's not. You can't go get a scan and see you've got mental health problem, or even jinn possession, for example. Therefore, it is quite common for people to rather seek help from an imam, or sometimes imposter pretending to be imam, taking advantage of their difficult circumstances or situation. And people can get into difficult situation with that.
Because of that, thank you. Doctor, now, Brother Khalil speaks about, obviously, the challenges, and he talks from a faith perspective. Is there work that can be done there where religious faith leaders of all backgrounds, they can work with medical doctors, psychologists, to try and come up with, because obviously with physical injuries, there's a solution. It's quite straightforward, like Khalil Bhai speaks about. But when it comes to mental health and how we approach stuff like spirit release and other kind of phenomenons that are not clearly defined and solutions aren't as easily accessible.
Sure. I'd like to approach that question from my perspective, and not from the position, but from what religious leader, perhaps what they could do. Because as we said rightly, because mental is not something tangible that we can actually see it, there are a variety of views about it, and some views are more helpful than some others. I don't want to be judgmental to see which one is better. It depends on circumstances, and me being a psychologist, of course I adhere to more kind of scientific view. But I think in terms of what religious leaders could do, because a lot of people that go to religious leaders, they can be a huge help in terms of they give them the right advice, who to approach, or just talk to them in the sense of to give them a spiritual guidance. So they can have a big part actually in promoting and helping people to seek help rather than see it as something that has to be as a taboo or not to be speak about.
Khalil Bhai, you spoke about people who they are referred to as, I guess, witch doctors, who try and take advantage of people's mental health or a particular given situation in a person's life. What would you, people watching at home who might be getting advice from these so-called witch doctors, what would be your advice? Because it can be very dangerous, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There are a lot of people that waiting to jump onto those kind of situation and take advantage. Yeah. And there has been a lot of recorded incident, even media, a lot of stories you read, even, I've witnessed myself and have been told, you have to do this, give me this amount of money. Where there's somebody's asking for money and things, you need to be careful who you go to and who you trust with this. And people in this situation, they are willing to go to anybody because they want to overcome this difficulty. And for their child, they don't want to see them suffering with this child, or even for themselves. Therefore, it's very important that you carefully choose who you go to for help.
Adil, bringing you into the conversation, from a young person's perspective, how would it feel if you were to witness that? If you were, say for example, you were in a situation where you were seeing someone being taken advantage of because of their lack of understanding, and them going to, say, someone like a witch doctor. How would you react to something like that? What would you do? Because there might be young people at home watching this who are actually experiencing this on a first-hand basis. What would you do, and how would you react?
In that situation, as the brother has touched upon, you're willing to go to anyone to seek help because you're not sure of what to do. It's very difficult to say, but
What would you do in that situation if you witnessed something? Say you went to a friend's house and you saw someone, giving advice and they weren't necessarily, and you could sense that what they were saying just didn't add up or it didn't seem right. What do you do in a situation like that?
If I saw it firsthand happening to someone I know, then obviously in their own personal time, I'll go up to them and I would speak to them and tell them, and I'd ask them, do you know what this person is doing? And yeah, I'd approach them at a later time, ask
Sure.
them how everything's going.
But I think the most important message you're saying is that communication has to happen.
Yeah, there needs to be communication between people.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Now, Adu, I'm going to stay with you. From your perspective, do you feel, we've got two professionals who deal with people with mental health, supporting, advising. As a young person, do you think there's enough exposure on what to do? On what to do, say, for example, if a family member has mental health problems, or if, you want to know about it, do you feel there's enough there to access?
I feel like there is enough there to access. There's loads of brilliant organizations to help people get on with that. But the only problem is, it's just, although there are loads of places to go to, people aren't aware of it still. And there's still lack of communication between people and their family because of the fact that it's a taboo subject and people don't like to talk about it.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. So, Dr. Babar, Adil speaks about the fact that the awareness is there, but it's because of that taboo, feel to it that people choose not to take advantage of those services. Would you agree with that?
I would, yeah. I think there is more that can be done in terms of a lot of common practice is to do how to deal with mental health, right, and how we can prevent it, preventative measures basically. And those preventative measures require more effort and planning, educating, and if people can have access to resources where they can have a better understanding, like for example in our previous conversation about the position and stuff like that, how people choose to seek professionals,
Sure.
Go to a GP as opposed to imam or vice versa, or some other people who might actually not even be qualified as religious leaders. I think there is more needs to be done in terms of educating people and making them aware.
Sure.
So this kind of taboo subject become less of a taboo and become something that can be spoken about.
Okay. Now, staying with you, Doctor, would you say is mental health something that's genetic, related to genetics, hereditary, or is it something that's developed? What's your take on that?
I think that's the hot potato subject, if you ask me, because depends what sort of professional you ask that question, they might give you a different answer. And that also shows that this domain is still in the embryonic stage, I would say. And if you ask a medical, strictly medical professional, they might say, yeah, there is a strong genetic factors to it. Although I do not deny that genetic plays a part. But I think, as a psychologist, I think is more to do with how people experience their lives in the context of family, community, and society. Sure. Whether they feel accepted, whether they feel loved, and whether they feel they can talk to people when they have problems. Okay. Those things I think are more important.
Sure, because I think there might be young people here who have family members who might have mental health problems. And they
Absolutely.
might be worried that, is this something that is going to happen to me regardless of what I do? So that's really good advice. Khalid bhai, would you say it's more common amongst young women or young men? Or once again, is there not enough data to try and...
There's not enough data. Also, remember, not everyone they experience, they come in contact with services. Remember that. There still might be people out there, they experience mental health, but not with any services.
Okay.
So, and the reasons, hence we're discussing the taboo subject, might be the reason. Because in the Bangladeshi community particularly, if somebody is identified with a crazy, mad family, we don't want to have relationship with them, we don't want to have marriage tie with them.
So it's the social implications that being categorized
people
as having a mental illness can have.
Absolutely,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Adil, in terms of, I'll obviously get the professional opinions in terms of preventative and solutions. But say, for example, young people watching at home right now who are watching this and they're worried. What would you say? What would be your advice based on what you've heard? Because, mashallah, it's been very educational today.
I think what young people should do is if they feel like they have a problem, they need to find someone they trust and they need to talk to them about it, because talking to someone really helps a person in that situation.
Excellent. I think that's brilliant advice. Doctor, coming to you, in terms of what could a person do? So say, for example, if a person's going through, a low level of depression or, a bit of anxiety and stuff like that, what are the things that they can do so that it doesn't build up to something much more serious?
One thing is start from family and school. I think these two are very important for young people, because these two are the environment that they spend most of the time with, either in the context of the family. And if the relationship of the young person with parents or siblings are not that trustworthy or comfortable, I think it would make it very difficult to speak about it. So I think my advice would be for parents to be more accessible to the children, to the young people. Sometimes, because it's a difficult subject, people might be able to directly talk about it. They might show it in the behavior, or they might be withdrawn. They might not be very actually show it in the marks at the school. So they might have a deterioration in the functioning before they be able to speak about it. And a sensitive parents can pick on that. A sensitive teacher can pick that on.
Sure. So the advice is for our parents, if there are kind of signs that they spot, not to let it develop, but try and investigate a bit, find out what's going on.
Absolutely, because a lot of time parents could be judgmental and see it as the person is lazy or they don't want to do it. I think this sort of judgment can stop people speaking about it.
Okay, well, we've got a couple of callers on the line. Assalamu alaikum, caller. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Walaikum salam. Can you hear me?
Yes, sister, go ahead. How would you like to contribute?
Well, I just wanted to ask a quick question. My mother wanted to know, she's very interested in your show. She just wanted to ask, in regards to mental health, would you be able to translate that into Bengali and just give us a brief description about how it comes about? Is it through genes or is it through life experiences? And just explain that in Bengali, really.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, sister. And can we take the next caller as well, please? Assalamu alaikum.
Salamun alaikum.
Alayhi salam, sister. How would you like to contribute?
I would like to ask a question from Dr. Bob, please.
Yeah.
As a person who has a member of family who suffers from mental health, and earlier on you were talking about the mental health, it's not something that you can see through scans or something. So as a patient, as a carer, how do you choose which path to take in terms of see a psychologist and use a therapy, or go and see a psychiatrist and take medication, despite the fact that it's not something that you can medically sort of say that 100% you're suffering from this condition. So as a patient, how do you choose your path, and what do you need to do?
Okay, thank you, sister. I think two brilliant questions. What would you, first of all, I'll come to you, Khalil Bhai. In terms of, I think it was the question that we in fact discussed, but I think we want a bingo answer so that the mother who's watching, who doesn't understand English properly. So is this something that is based on genetics, hereditary, or is it something that's developed, mental health? Apne Bengali matoka, please.
Bengali. It's a challenge now. Can't remember the last time I took Bengali. এটা খুব কঠিন হওয়া জানে কোন কারণে আপনার মানসিক সমস্যা হইতে পারে আপনি যে আপনার জীবনের যে এক্সপেরিয়েন্স অক্ষতা কি হইতে পারে আপনি যে এনভায়রনমেন্টে যে সমাজে আপনি বড় হইছেন যে ধরনের আপনি কোনো ধরনের জন্য কষ্ট হইয়া থাকে লাইফও ওগুলো আপনার কন্ট্রিবিউট করতে পারে কোনো সমস্যা হইতে পারে বা হয়তো আপনার কোনো যে আছে যেমন তারা ইনাফ রিসার্চ করা হয়েছে না এগুলোর উপরে ইনাফ স্টাডি করা হয়েছে না এখন আর্লি স্টেজ মানে কনক্লুশন না এখনো কনফার্ম করা হয়েছে না এটা আপনার বংশগত হইতে পারে কি আপনার যে সমাজে আপনি বসবাস করেন এর কারণে হইতে পারে
ঠিক আছে and doctor, the second question, which was, as a carer, how do you know which pathway to go in regards to treatment or support?
I think the first obvious one is the GP, really, because they're the first point of contact in terms of initial screening and assessment and flagging up to specialist services. But I think apart from that, the carers can actually, they need to educate themselves to have a better understanding of what mental health is about. They need to approach GP if they are concerned about something. I think it depends on the severity of the situation. If someone is really unwell, maybe approaching GP would not be the first advisable thing. Maybe they need to go to A&E, for example, if the person is really in acute phase. But if there are some signs that suggest the person might need some help, normally, I mean, in the UK, GPs are the first point of contact, and then things can get stopped from there.
That's fine.
Can I add to that? Can I just add to this for the sisters' benefit
In Bengali?
and others?
No, in English. Okay.
I'll try. It's going to be tough for me to explain Bengali. I think it's better if we speak
That's
English.
fine.
It's easier. I think it's really what's worked for the person. I think, as Doctor mentioned, if you're in crisis, you don't want to be calling somebody. You want to go to hospital immediately and get help if you're feeling a crisis in it. And the first point of contact is definitely GP. And also, going to GP and giving medication, not necessarily that medication will work for you.
Of course.
It's really what works for you.
That's
Some talking therapy works for some people, medication works for some people, or combination of both. So it's what really works for you.
For an
It's very
individual. Okay.
important, yeah.
Now, Khalid Bhai, how effective do you feel spirituality is as a source of healing, say, a mental problem?
I remember going back 4 or 5 years in West London, there was a pilot project working with London Central Mosque, which is Regent Park Mosque. And the outcome was phenomenal. The people that actually have mental health diagnosis, working with Imam as well, their quality of life has improved so much compared to before. So there is a benefit. Definitely, there was I'm not sure if there's been, commissioned elsewhere, but there was outcome of that pilot project was really good.
So you would say someone who's quite, their spirituality, whatever faith that they believe in, that can actually help them overcome some of the mental health problems.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
and have you seen that in the community as well?
I have, yeah. People tend to rely on, spirituality in difficult circumstances and situations, and that's the kind of they're holding on to something that to help them overcome, which is psychological also works. Yeah.
Adil, I think sometimes obviously stuff like even sleeping, when you read about articles, even sleep deprivation can cause a young person to suffer mental problems. Do you feel that in this current day and age where people are on their phones all the time, they're having very little sleep, do you feel that can have a big impact on a person, on a young person? So when they're not sleeping, because young people, from your perspective, there are a lot of young people who don't sleep enough. You hear that in the studies that we read about.
Yeah, of course. Like even in some of my friends as well. But it's very widespread because of the advances of technology and stuff like that. People are always on their mobile phones, and usually it leads to like a lack of sleep. I know people who sleep around 4 a.m. in the morning and they have to wake up at 8 a.m. So they get very little sleep, and it does impact their education and many other things.
We've got a caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum, caller. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Aslam Ziawai.
जी किधर अबला सन?
This is Aslam here, Aslam.
Oh, Aslam bhai, jazakumullah khair for calling.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. What is your question, Aslam bhai?
I was watching the show actually. It's very interesting. Just want to contribute to a few things.
Thank you.
First of all, when sometimes the depression, makes people really may make them lose the balance sometimes, and people go through some difficulties, and some people sometimes they think they will say it's a gene issue, that issue, a lot of things they do, But for example, if it's for children, it can be sometimes because at school, even simple thing like bullying at school can put a child into a depression, And then, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead, please. Aslam bhai.
Things like this actually, give a lot of effect in terms of mental illness and like that,
Okay.
So we need to look out for those signs actually. What is the thing that is affecting whether it's a child or an elderly person? And we need to find the root cause of the effect. sometimes that's missing. Even the doctors, the mental health services, through the assessment, I can go to the bottom of the problem. Actually.
Okay, thank you very much, Aslam Bhai. I think we're coming towards the end of the show, so I think the caller spoke about not just trying to address it, but trying to find the root problem of this whole kind of topic that we're talking about. And our guest alluded to the fact that there's so much out there that can be done. But I think immediately what we need to do is understand, try and there's so many services out there that are offering free support, and I think, not to worry about the stigma attached to it, but to try and actually find out, is this something that might affect me in the long run? And I think all of us, our parents, our young brothers and sisters who are watching this, please don't feel bad or feel scared to try and look into whether this is something that could develop into something much bigger. Go and find out, go and see, because it might be something that's actually nothing. So it's just something for you not to worry about. Alhamdulillah, আমরা স্কুল শর্মাজ আমরা ডিসকাস করলাম, আমরা মেন্টাল হেলথে আমরা কমিউনিটির মাঝে আমরা ইয়াং ভাই বোনের ধরে আমরা ওল্ড প্যারেন্টস আইন ধরে কিলা এফেক্ট করে কতটা সার্ভিসেস আছে আপনারা জ্ঞান আনি ওটাকে অ্যাক্সেস করুকা আপনারা যদি নানি মেন্টালি আপনার মানে হেলথ অত বালা নাই আপনারা গিয়া ফাইন্ড আউট করুকা কিতা করা যায় কিতা করলে আপনার সাহায্য হইব আপনারা কতটা আখতা এক্সারসাইজ করেন যদি আপনারা সাহায্য হইব আপনারা যদি বালা ডায়েট থাকতে আপনারা সাহায্য হইব সো আমরা আখতা ওটা করি না আর বুঝি আরও কিছু বড়ই যায় আর আমরা আরও চিন্তা করি সো আপনারা প্লিজ ওটা করবা আরও জিনিস হইল আপনারা নানি কত মানুষ আসেন ধরে লৌকা হইবা জিন হয়ে গেছে নাই অতই গেছে আপনারা নানি যে ইমাম আছেন মাসজিদ আইন টপ মাসজিদ আইন তারা লগে গিয়া মাথইন যেন সেখানে আখতা কত মানুষ আছেন অ্যাডভাইস আপনার রং দিতে পারেন রং দিয়ে আরও ছোটোর জিনিস একটা খুব বড় হইতে পারে But আপনারা also ডাক্তারাইন তো লগে গিয়া মাথইন যেন so community leader আইন তো লগে মাথইন যেন ডাক্তারাইন তো লগে মাথইন যেন there are a lot of people in our community for our young brothers and sisters and our parents who might give you the wrong advice and our guest spoke about these witch doctors and you need to be very careful. What you need to do is go and speak to reputable imams in our top masjids, in our top mosques, and also go and speak to health professionals, your GPs, your doctors, because these are the people who are the experts and they're the people who can really support us whether we're young or old. So, I really hope that you've enjoyed the show and you've benefited, and thank you for all our callers who've contributed, and thank you to all our guests. So, inshallah, for now, we'll leave you. So, bala tahoka. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.